Yuya Uemura is injured and is going to be missing a lot of time, unfortunately. But Jake Lee has signed with the company. We've got news on Ryohei Oiwa, Yuto Nakashima. We're going to look ahead to the shows this coming week as New Japan hits the road again after a break following the G1 climax. We haven't had a show since the G1 finals, besides Capital Collision, which we reviewed here. So we're going to take a look at all of that. Plus, we have more on Hiroshi Tanahashi's history. With Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. This is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome, everyone, to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. So we have quite a bit to talk about this week, Jeremy. As it turns out, there weren't any shows. We did Capital Collision, and we did a review show last week, so make sure you check that out both on the podcast feed and the YouTube Fight Game Media channel to see our review of Capital Collision, which had some good matches, but maybe not a lot of story to them going forward on it. And other than that, in Japan anyway, the company's been dark since the G1 finals, and things are finally picking up. In fact, there's a non-televised show tomorrow, and then they start to hit New Japan World. So we've got some stuff going, but unfortunately, none of it is going to involve Yuya Uemura. Now, we had a feeling that he was hurt, and hurt pretty bad, in that match at the G1 Climax with Yota Tsuji. And it turns out, Jeremy, it is a tricep tear. So different. I figured it was like a dislocated elbow or something. Tore his tricep. Looking at 6 months out. So doing the math on that, that takes Wrestle Kingdom out of the equation, most likely, unless he has a miracle comeback. We might not be seeing Uemura until the New Japan Cup next year. Considering all the momentum he had in the G1, that just breaks my heart. I feel so bad for him that this happened at this moment, and I'm sure you had the same reaction. It's like, oh my goodness, 6 months now?
Come get your cup, King. That's all I'm about to say. He put his body on the line. They all do. All of these guys. This can happen to each and every one of the guys that we watch in any one of the promotions at any given time. And I'm pretty bummed that it's Yuya, but I do not think that he's going to lose any momentum. I think they're going to have him right back, picking up where he left off, if he were. And I think he's going to have a stronger G1 next year. There's a lot coming for Yuya, and I'm pretty excited for it. I'm bummed about this, but this is not a guy where I think that his long-term plans are going to be deviating as a result of it.
No, but I was looking forward to his matches this fall.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to seeing what they were going to do with him at Wrestle Kingdom, because I do feel like they had something in mind for him, and that would be a nice showcase for him. So that's just a rough break. And
what did you think? What did
he'll come back and he'll be fine.
If he had not gone away, what would you see his plan to have been going?
It's a good question. I mean, I think he might stick his nose into the either the global title or the Never Openweight title picture at some point in the fall there. That's kind of what I had in mind. Is that where you were going with it?
No, I didn't know at all. I was thinking that he might Cool Jets and have an appearance to do a wrestling match here or there, but maybe not until World Tag League would have plans really gone underway. Maybe get something going with Sonata, like a Sonata kind of Yuya thing at Wrestle Kingdom eventually. But I didn't know if there was going to be an underlying theme of all of these young guys trying to climb the mountain over some of the veterans at Wrestle Kingdom. And so when I was looking at Yuya, I was kind of looking at that kind of direction for him, because he didn't seem like the guy that they were going to do front and center, right? He didn't make it. He wasn't trending to win the G1, right?
Well,
and
we know there's only one guy who's going to be
right. So there was a point where he was going to fall. So would he have made the playoffs? There's an argument that he could have, but I think he wasn't going to. I think the three guys in that block were going to.
No, but I think he was on an upward trajectory for the second half of the year. And so, and not that they can't do it. It's not like his career's over with or anything, but it is kind of rough that he has to wait, because you know how it is. 6 months later, you never believe me. This time last year, and we had no idea what was coming 6 months from that. Things looked very, very different. The landscape changed completely. So hopefully that won't happen to him, and they can slot him back in a good spot, because
I feel pretty good about that. In all honesty, I feel like him getting his opportunity is not going to be missed.
I'd like to see something along the lines of a bit of a repackage for him. Maybe not a different name, a nickname. I mean, not, you keep using Yuya Uemura, but maybe a different nickname.
Doing it for you?
No, and maybe just a different presentation. Something fresh when he comes back. That might help him too. And we have some people joining us here. We got some regulars, USVA guys here. Colin is here. Thank you, Colin. We're always glad to see you. Dunstan is with us live. That's always nice. Hola to you as well. So we're glad you're here.
What I think I'd really like is that they just go hot with it right out the cup and have him face Taichi, have him face Sanada in a match.
Run all of his teammates.
Yeah.
Like,
if there was always a thing where he joined he joined just 5 guys because he wanted to challenge all of them eventually. And if you've missed an opportunity to do that, but that's still his long-term goal, you could do that at the cup. You know what I'm saying? It's like you could set it up so that he has to go through all those guys and then he beats them. And then you have this kind of crossroads of like, well, this guy's just, you know what I mean? Like you all of a sudden you introduce a very dramatic, like, shift in the hierarchy of the faction. You already had Taichi out of the G1, right? And you had Sanada and Yuya in it. So if you had, Yuya beat Taichi in the New Japan Cup and then eventually face up against Sanada and beat him, you have escalated Yuya's glow up or progression within the company very quickly and saved a lot of time that you might not have had because of the injury that he has suffered.
I mean, we can fantasy book 6 months ahead all we want, but it's I think he'll come back in a decent spot, but it might be time for a new coat of paint for him and all that. USVA guy says he would have made the playoffs. Company's always held Yuya in extremely high regard. Maybe, who knows? But I think the playoffs mostly went the way they were planning on that. But it's an interesting thing of where he might come back and where he might be slotted. But he's definitely a talented guy, and it's rough that especially, and it happened when it did, and of course against Tsuji, which is those two are so tied together. And I mentioned that it might be some kind of strange alliance in the same way that Sanada and Taichi had that thing for a little bit between Tsuji and Uemura, where they aren't necessarily at each other's throats, but now they've fostered that respect for one another, because Tsuji basically devoted the rest of the tournament to him. And I think that would be intriguing also, if when he comes back, it would be in some kind of maybe not a tag team, but maybe some sort of mutual respect between he and Tsuji that goes beyond just 5 guys in LIJ. It could be something like that. And eventually, of course, Taichi and Sanada did join up and form just 5 guys, but I don't know if you need to be that extreme, but it's a way to tie Tsuji and Uemura to one another even longer term. So
yeah, there's definitely a lot you can do. It's just, if you want to strike while the iron is hot and you don't want to wait another 3 months if he's coming back in February or March, I hope that they have a really solid plan to keep the heat storm hot coming into 2025.
If you wanted to, it's his tricep that's hurt. He can walk. So if he accompanies someone to ringside, support somebody at Wrestle Kingdom, that could be a way to keep him in the zeitgeist.
Yeah, I hope so. So speaking of the zeitgeist, we got another individual that
has
some important news, right?
So Jake Lee is officially signed with New Japan. We figured this, right? We had a feeling that this was happening. He was treated as basically as a New Japan wrestler, and was certainly figured in the plans going ahead, because they were coming up with the smart bastards team there with what do they call them? The Mad Bastards. The Mad Bastards. Gabe Kidd and Jake Lee going to team up, and it looks like chase the IWGP tag team title. So to absolutely nobody's surprise, they announced that Jake Lee is officially signed with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So we mentioned that he did pick things up at the end of the G1. He was doing better in the ring. The first week was pretty rough, but the rest of it was much better. he might be able to, if not rein in Kid a little bit, but be the nice yin to the yang. They can be like an odd couple team. You have the guy that's just all intensity, all the time, 100 miles an hour, and Gabe Kidd, and then have the more calculating Jake Lee with him. Might be a tag team that can work. And as we mentioned many times, we need fresh tag teams in New Japan. This might be a good spot for him.
I'm really happy with the tag team pairing. I know that, some people don't like Bullet Club, or, Gabe Kidd should be in a singles position right now. This is not the case with Gabe Kidd right now. You need to let this simmer and get a little hotter. There could be a point where we get Gabe Kidd and Jake Lee revisited, but I don't think it's anytime soon. I think this is for a long haul kind of thing. I think we need to prepare for this through at least the next 6 to 9 months. Like, this isn't a quick, we're going to dissolve this thing and I'm taking apart Bullet Club or anything like that. This is going to be a simmer kind of thing. And Jake Lee is good with simmer kind of angles and letting things play out. That's the whole onus of his persona, is being a smart bastard and playing some type of long con. So when Jake Lee strikes, it's going to be one of those things that hopefully is a well thought out angle. And when we're least expecting it, it's not going to be right away. So whatever that is.
I'm curious to see if this is one of those tag teams where, similar to Adrian Adonis and Jesse Ventura, and I know I'm going way back machine for this type of thing, but that's when that stuff cemented in my brains, because when I started watching wrestling. But you got the workhorse and the guy that handles the crowd work and the talking, or the psychology. And there are a lot of teams like Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart, the Hart Foundation, something like that, where Gabe Kidd can do a lot of the work and the psychology can be with Jake, and maybe they can work. He needs to continue to raise his game in New Japan, because this is a different level than he's worked with before, as far as the depth of good workers and things. All Japan and Noah both have good workers. That's not me saying that that's bad companies, but maybe not the depth that New Japan has. That's why New Japan's number one. And this is something where he can raise his game, but in a tag team with a guy like Kidd, he doesn't have to do it all. He can come in and just do what he does well. You can kind of hide. You can hide those weaknesses. Yeah, exactly. And really put his strengths out there in front of everyone. And it doesn't have to be Jake Lee for 20 straight minutes. That's the thing that might work best. So, but we already have some people. Dunstan has said, boo, not Jake Lee. Collins saying he's not a fan of this signing. So he has a lot to prove to the New Japan fans. And he was very slow coming out of the gate. When we first saw him in G1, we just thought, oh boy, this is not going to be good at all. And then it got to okay. I'm not sure we've seen a really great Jake Lee match yet in New Japan, and it might not be for a while because the tag team scene is what it is. Maybe Bishamon can get something out of him, but we'll see how all that goes down the line. TMDK is a really good team that can pull out a good match with people. So I'm curious, but I do think a tag team might be just the spot to get him in the group.
I will leave it at this. I am cautiously optimistic about Jake Lee and where they have him positioned at New Japan right now. I think there's going to be a lot of changes in the landscape of New Japan over the next year.
Oh, yeah.
And I think whatever happens with Jake Lee will be a reaction to all of those landscape changes. Like, the dust will have to settle for the first round of tectonic shift, maybe even another round of tectonic shift, about like the general landscape of New Japan will never be the same. It's at that point that there are people that will respond now that they've seen what has all happened. This is what we have. This is what we got going on here. I know that there is not a lot of Jake Lee fans, but he is not going to be in the forefront for a long time. And his focus will be mid-card and Bullet Club for a considerable bit of time going forward.
Yeah. And then the top guys are pretty busy for right now.
Yeah.
So, And then Colin's emoji game strong here. He puts up this comment. Let's hope they don't pair Lee and Sonata up along with the yawn emoji, the sleep emoji. to go in there as two guys that can really slow a show down, no doubt. Dunstan's thoughts on Jake's comment about the pay in Noah. Did you see this, Jeremy? The comment about the pay in Noah? I will admit I did not.
I briefly scanned over the interview, and it felt more like kayfabe than not. But I can go back and we can find it. Let's go back and find this thing.
Okay. Well, while we're doing that, because I do want to explore that if he worked that into his in character press conference where he signed. We've got a picture of him for the folks that are on the podcast feed with Jake holding up his. What looks like, I guess it's supposed to be a contract. Doesn't it? Looks like it was printed incorrectly.
It was a contract. It's the New Japan Pro Wrestling cover letter with his signature on there. No, I did not find anything on the New Japan Pro Wrestling write-up about Noah's.
So Dunstan, if you want to help us out with that, we'll take a look.
So he did write this: whether I want to be in New Japan or not is irrelevant. What is important is whether the company wants us. We wrestlers are commodities. It is whether the company believes they can sell us at profit. That is all.
Okay. Well, there you have it. Okay.
You know, like, do you know what this is? Quite possibly, yes. New Japan Pro Wrestling wanted to do what it took to sign me, and out of the goodness of my heart, I signed. He commented that through his journey through All Japan and Noah to New Japan was a human drama nobody could have imagined. One I'm offering to all of you.
All right. So, Dunstan says this is a Tokyo Sports interview, so we'll take a look. There are some other things. We'll come back to that if we get to the actual quote. But Dunstan had another comment that actually leads into our next topic, which is regarding Uemura. He said, by the time Yuya returns, Oiwa and the other young talent would be in the forefront. And we do know that Ryohei Oiwa, after a long and pretty successful excursion over in Pro Wrestling Noah, is finishing up with that company. And I think we can expect to have him back in New Japan relatively soon, perhaps. But yeah, he's finishing up with Noah. He went through their whole N1 tour while we were covering the G1. He was going through the N1 tour, and now he is finishing up with that company. I tell you what, Jeremy, what I saw of him, he was one of the most exciting parts of Pro Wrestling Noah while he was there. Not the only one. There is talent there, but he was a real breath of fresh air with Noah. He's definitely bulked up. He's a lot bigger than he was when he left. Mm-hmm. He looks really good, looks really smooth in the ring. I think he's going to fit right back in with Strong Style when he comes back to New Japan. I'm excited about seeing the return of Ryohei Oiwa. Are you?
I am. He has one more match left, and it's with Kaito Kiyomiya on the 14th. And I think this was a call your shot because Kiyomiya won the N1, and he was already the champion. So he was all like he got a position where he can just call his matches, and this was already in the works. You know, they had sent it up, but he could win. I don't think he will. I think that it's time for him to come back. Either way, though, it's kind of exciting that you look at this guy like he could actually win this belt right here and now, and that could set up his first. Like he could come in as the GHC champion and then set up a feud with Kiyomiya in New Japan, going into Wrestle Kingdom and even Wrestle Dynasty if you wanted to. It's not completely out of the question. There are things that you can do with him out the gate. But if that doesn't happen, or even if it does, I don't know where you put him. Like, I don't know where he's set up.
Jeremy, it's funny you mentioned that because Dunstan just said, how would you like Oiwa to return, either in a new faction or a current faction? I'm of two minds on this. So there's one. If you wanted to just make him a babyface, he could be the guy that chooses Hantai. Remember how Hiroshi Tanahashi was talking about how he wants to make Hantai something that people aspire to instead of break away from. And that's been the story of Hantai for a long time, is that you're sort of Hantai until you find something else to do, right? I mean, that's the way that trajectory has been for a lot of people. Okay. I don't know if that's the best use of him, though. I think I would like to see Oiwa in a new faction, something we don't have currently. And there are pieces of chaos laying around. There are pieces of even Hantai laying around, and there are some other miscellanea out there, I think, that could make for an interesting faction if you were asking me what I would like them to do, I would like to see something new rather than have him just slide in as one of the guys in one of the current groups.
I think I'm with you. I could see a feud building between something like Oiwa and Shota Umino, where Shota, part of his turn into darkness is seeing that this guy's kind of just coming in and taking his spot from him in Hontai. Because I would assume Oiwa is going to be a heavyweight, right?
Oh, God, yeah. It's not even close.
Right. So he's coming in, and it could be the power dynamic kind of thing, the issue of like, this guy's coming to take my spot, and the company literally leans into it. You could do something like that, but I think I'm with New Faction. I think I'm on the New Faction pull train.
Yeah, and they could. He mentions it. Would you want to have him return to Wrestle Kingdom? That could be a place to go. You might see his debut as a wrestler, Wrestle Kingdom, and maybe he makes his presence known at King of Pro Wrestling. That could be a way to do it. There are options here. And you mentioned that don't put him in Chaos because that group's dead already. It kind of is. And, Yano and Ishii have basically joined up with Hantai. They're teaming with Tanahashi more than they're doing anything else. Bishamon is still out there, and that's a really good team. Yo is still out there as a junior heavyweight. I know he's maybe not the most exciting guy in that division right now, but he is out there and just kind of doing a lot of nothing. There are people I think that could be a part of that. And I mentioned this for a long time. Taiji Ishimori doesn't really have a place in both.
I was just gonna say,
and he could join up with Oiwa, and that's another Noah guy, right? I mean, a guy who spent most of his career in Noah. So there are ways to kind of weave in some people who are on the island of misfit toys, so to speak, don't have a real place. There is no Chaos really. Who is in it? It's just those a couple of guys, and Rocky Romero's not even in Japan most of the time. So. And you never mind. Who cares about Best Friends and Orange Cassidy from a New Japan perspective? Those guys are perfectly capable wrestlers, but the idea that they're in Chaos is a little superfluous. So within New Japan, why not take these guys that are floating around out there and make something interesting and something new? Chaos really kind of died out when Okada left, and it was kind of limping along after Nakamura left, really. It was starting to merge with Hantai a little bit. Just go all the way with it. And like you said, he could be a guy that could just piss off Shota Umino to the point that he, takes some drastic steps. That could be a direction. So, yeah.
Do you see Oiwa as a heel or a face coming in?
Yeah, boy, that's an interesting question because there are a couple ways you could go with that. I
kind of leaning with heel the more
little bit.
I think about it. And so him and Ishimori and a couple of these other guys that are just bad guys but don't quite vibe with Bullet Club or House of Torture, they could all just kind of come up like, we just want to win, like, and we will win, but you won't like the way we want to win. But it's not dastardly. It's just like it's like a Blackpool, it's like a shooter group. You know what I mean? Like the guys that come in the ring like, no, you may not like us, but we're good at what we do.
And Dunson mentions it'd be boring if he returns in the same format as the other guys before him. It's time to do something different than that, isn't it? Yeah. So this could be a way to do it. The last several guys are just kind of slotted in with a group, and it was exciting when Yota Tsuji joined LIJ. And it was interesting when Uemura picked just 5 guys, and it was fun when Shota, became what he was. It was something fresh for that group. But we have seen guys just come back and be a member of a faction. It's time. I think it's time to shake
a card, and you've dealt every faction a hand. Like you've dealt everybody a card. Like everybody gets a new guy, and it just feels like with the G1 and the way that they've been doing business since April, that's not the way that they're going to do it moving forward. Because all these guys got introduced and got brought into their factions before the Kikuchi March turnaround, all this stuff. Like we have different creative in there, and I think we're gonna get caught not expecting it when this all happens.
It's also interesting because Tsuji was in Rev Pro, he was in CMLL. He wasn't among the number 1 guys in either company. He was one of them. And same thing with Umino. And, Uemura did fine on his excursion, not knocking it, but main eventing major shows, no. Just learning a new style, right? Well, Oi was part of the mix, part of the main event mix within Noah for a good chunk of his time there. So in a bit more prominent a spot, which would be good to use upon his return. That this isn't just somebody returning from excursion to start fresh in New Japan. This guy's a friggin' star for another promotion coming in. Different feel, and perhaps a different approach is necessary.
Yeah, I'm hoping that New Japan is reading the room and hitting the ground running, because there's no time to waste. There just isn't anymore.
No, you're right.
Let's get to it.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, this company needs to freshen things up. There's one other person I wanted to mention being back, and that is Yuto Nakashima, by the way. I remember a few months ago he was injured on his excursion. He is now back with Rev Pro and also working for a little bit for XWX in Germany. And he and Oscar Loibe back teaming, Youngblood. And thankfully, he is returned from his injury. Seems to have slotted right back in with Oscar.
Didn't they win a pair of tag titles?
I heard something like that. I wasn't able to find. I was looking on wrestling data and wasn't able to confirm that off the top here. But I have heard that also.
Yuto Nakashima.
He may well have, but I'm definitely happy that he's back in there. That's a guy who was really showing a lot of personality and progress, and he was bulking up. He wasn't cut. Just had that kind of a burly guy thing, and he almost had a Makabe thing going with the bushy hair and the size as he was building that up. And we've seen Loibe really come along quite a bit in the last year, so definitely glad that they're back on track.
I can't say for sure, but I'm pretty sure that he and Youngblood they got some gold in the last couple weeks.
Some regional promotion over there somewhere.
I think it was WFW.
Was it?
I think it was the German promotion.
Could very well be.
Yeah. Okay. Ew. What else we got?
Well, we're back on tour. I mentioned in the introduction that New Japan has not had a show in Japan since the G1 finals, and it's been a little on the quiet side. Well, the tour is picking up again, and it actually begins at a house show, not televised, not going to be on NJPW World, but they begin tomorrow in Aichi. And on top in that house show will be LIJ against United Empire. That's a big preview tag. The card's mostly preview tags, like most of those house shows are. It includes Jacob Austin Young in the United Empire group now, so that's something to look forward to. Kosei Fujita is going to be back after he was hurt for a little while, but thankfully not seriously. And we will see the return of Masatora Yasuda and Daiki Nagai. Those are the two newest young lions we've seen in the ring. They missed the G1 tour. They were not pulled off of that. They were never booked for it. They had a few matches, and then they went with the more experienced young lions for the G1 tour, a bit more of a prominent spot. They deserved it, and now they could start getting some reps on this Road to Destruction tour. So it's beginning tomorrow in Aichi. We're going to see them again at Shingo Takagi's 20th anniversary show. That one is going to be on NJPW World, and it is on Saturday from his hometown in Yamanashi. And let's take a look at that card here real quick, Jeremy. We've got, I mentioned Yasuda and Nagai are going to be wrestling each other in the opener. We'll see.
Several times over the next couple of days, as a matter of
fact. A lot of that. We're going to see Shomakato teaming with Riita from Dragon Gate. And, of course, there's going to be a Dragon Gate presence. That's where Shingo spent a large portion of his career before he came to New Japan. So we're seeing a little bit of Dragon's Gate presence on this one for his anniversary in his hometown. Kota and Riita against Akira and Newman from United Empire. Murashima is teaming with Taguchi to take on HENARE and Jeff Cobb. I don't like Murashima's chances in that one. Let's see. Jado teaming with Shota Umino. So a little bit of Guerrillas of Destiny / Hantai action there with House of Torture, of course, Sho and Ren Narita. We'll be seeing that preview go on most of the tour.
Here's where it gets interesting.
The Mad Bastards taking on Honma and Ishii. So that'll be...
So Ishii's back from his summertime tour with AEW, putting over everybody that Tony Khan wanted him to put over for the course of 2 months, including a fantastic Hurricane Run on Kyle Fletcher in a match off the top rope that I could not believe that I saw. She is amazing. And so him getting some time with Gabe Kidd and Jake Lee and Tomoaki Honma, this was the first of the matches that my ears picked up. I'm like, ooh, okay, we're cooking with a little bit of gas here.
That'll be interesting. I'm sure Honma's probably going to eat the pin on that one, but it'll be interesting to see how they do it. Probably with the big boot, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
Taka Michinoku and DOUKI, our junior heavyweight champion, is going to be defending his title this week. We'll see that later on. This one, it's Taka and DOUKI against Gedo and Taiji Ishimori. So there's the preview of that junior heavyweight title match later in the week that we'll get to.
Every time I see Taiji Ishimori in a Bullet Club, you don't fit. And it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that's true. After that, we have Tiger Mask, Oleg Boltin, Toru Yano, and Hiroshi Tanahashi. So our six-man tag team champions going up with Tiger Mask against the House of Torture crew, Kanemaru, Togo, Yujiro Takahashi, and Evil. And underneath the main event, it's going to be Fujita, Gosei Fujita back against Zack Sabre, with Zack Sabre Jr. to take on Jacob Austin Young from United Empire and the Great Okan. So we have, Okan and Sabre, the next two challengers for the IWGP Championship across the ring from one another. And the main event,
that's a clever little matchup. Both guys that want a shot at Naito, doing a little bit of feuding ahead of time. Yeah, I do think it's too bad for Jacob Austin Young, but he's there to, look at the lights.
Yeah, but I mean, this is what Callum Newman did before they started giving him a little bit of juice. Newman lost just about every match until very recently, really. So nothing wrong with that spot. And Fujita might lose too. You never know. I mean, that's one way. They might put Young over by having him beat Fujita just to give him a little bit of shine. Who knows? And the main event will be Shingo Takagi's 20th anniversary match. Now, this one still has an X on the website, but we know who X is. And as a matter of fact, it's Yamato. Yamato from Dragon Gate teaming with Bushi and Shingo Takagi on one side. On the other side, his fellow LIJ teammates of Hiromu Takahashi, Yota Tsuji, and Tetsuya Naito. So a little intramural, interfaction battle to finish it up. And, of course, we expect that to probably end with the hesitant and reluctant, but then the fist bump in the middle of the ring type of thing for the end. But it'll be Yamato, Bushi, and Shingo against Hiromu, Yota, and Naito.
Steven, don't you think it's just so weird that the last month and presumably going forward has just been LIJ interfactional matches that they're just conditioning you for?
Yeah.
That for some reason they want to keep doing these LIJ interfactional matches over and over and over again.
Well, this is the thing that I've been talking about for a while with LIJ is I just feel like it's time to blow the thing up. And it's not because I don't like it. I love Los Ingobernables, but man, having all these guys protected in one group makes things pretty clunky. It's hard. And Shingo doesn't need to be a number two. Maybe even Tsuji doesn't need to be a number two. So I almost feel like one of those guys should break away and do their own thing, maybe with Oiwa, who knows? But it does feel a little bit like maybe they're getting us ready. They had the ultimate happy ending. Their guy won G1, won the world title at Wrestle Kingdom. They had the roll call. The roll call even involved one ex-member shooing away another ex-member so they could do the roll call. It couldn't have ended happier for LIJ in that moment. So maybe it's time that maybe that's the peak. And then now we start to see things beginning to show some cracks, perhaps, in the foundation. And maybe that's what they're leading us towards. Is that your feeling?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I don't know if we're on the sunset is on for LIJ. I think the best place is like their best positioning is now. Like, I don't think we get LIJ front and center moving forward. Even if Shingo has a faction and Yota has a faction and Naito still kind of runs LIJ, I just change, man. Change. And I think they're conditioning us for it. I'm gonna spring something on you real quick that we did not talk about, but I just kind of came across online. Royce Isaac has posted something, and he said, if you're a West Coast Wrecking Crew fan, we need all hands on deck. Tweet using the hashtag WC4 World Tag League.
Oh, look at him campaigning for himself. I like it.
The NJPW World Tag League is where the best teams in the world compete. The last few years, we have been prepared to show that, but we weren't given the chance. Now in 2024, we are truly ready to prove that we are the best tag team on this planet. I'm going to say right now that West Coast Wrecking Crew and Dirty Work should both be in the World Tag League this year, and there shouldn't even be a conversation. Like, you and I have been watching New Japan for God knows how long. These guys are a backbone of the industry. And if I have to clip this later and just tag Global, I'll do that. But like, he is putting out a legitimate like call to arms, and I can't say that I disagree with him at all with anything that he just wrote right there.
All right. Well, yeah, I would love to. We mentioned it before. I'd love to see West Coast Wrecking Crew in the World Tag League. So hopefully he gets there. I think that would be a nice breath of fresh air too. And we had the
Global. You're getting called out.
I mean, we had Gates of Agony last year, and they did fine. There was nothing wrong with it. I mean, you can bring in new teams, and they slide in. Got some discussion going on here, Jeremy. There, Dunstan mentions that I don't know if they'll ever pull the trigger on killing LIJ. No, I don't think so. I think one guy might leave and do his own thing the same way Evil and Sonata have left, and they continued with LIJ, especially with the merchandise that team sells. You don't want to kill it, but I do think it's time for an angle, and maybe Shingo or Tsuji don't need to be the number 2 behind anyone there, and that could be something they do.
The reality is you have 3 main adventures in the same faction. It's like you need to spread Yota to leading a group. You need to spread Shingo to leading a group, and you need to, theoretically, Naito doesn't have to lead a group anymore, but you will want him to because there's value in Naito being at the front, but he doesn't have to be the part of the best faction. Having a super group when no other group can compete is problematic in a promotion that you're trying to grow. You are much better off evening the playing field and having a number of equitable people trying to climb the mountain to be number 1 than having an aging, somewhat broken down individual in that top spot, and you have 2 of the strongest competitors seconding and thirding him in his faction rather than chasing him. It is just a matter of time that we really need to remove the illusion that they can afford to have these 3 guys all side by side every night. They need to be fighting each other, and they need to be all claiming some dominance.
And it doesn't have to be some big backstabbing thing. It could be simply that either Shingo Takagi or Yota Tsuji just picks up the microphone one time after a big win and just says, I'm ready to strike out on my own, and I'm going to do my own thing now. And that way you keep LIJ and you keep all that merchandise money, which USVA guy mentioned is a big part of. Remember how their revenue streams go in New Japan. There aren't zillion-dollar TV deals here. You need to sell tickets, you need to sell merch. And and LIJ does that. So I don't want to destroy LIJ completely and just have it not be a thing. But I do feel like there could be room for one of those guys to break out on their own and do their own thing. Because I mean, they handled the loss of Evil, the loss of Sonata just fine. They could lose another guy and still be fine. Still have Hiromu and Naito. They're 2 of the most popular guys in the whole company.
If Hiromu and Naito are still in LIJ and they bring in Zandukin and were to do, there is a heartbeat of that faction. And as much as you want to say that Shingo and Yota are the heartbeat of that faction, they are not. If the heart and soul, Naito and Hiromu are gone, then I think we have a different conversation.
Well, that's not going to happen. So
right. Yes.
The other thing Colin was mentioning, might as well talk about this. We have a little bit of time, but he just says, he mentions, can we stop having Ghetto wrestle on these shows in 2024? I know why he's there, but still, it's not great. Fair enough. I mean, Ghetto really doesn't wrestle much anymore. He mostly works his beard. That seems to be the most thing with it. And then he curses in English, which tickles me. But nevertheless, I understand what you mean. He certainly isn't a great wrestler anymore. He is there to protect Bullet Club. You mentioned that's what he's there for. Yeah, he protects the members of War Dogs. Right now, he's the only guy in War Dogs who isn't being carefully protected. Everybody else they're keeping those guys' shoulders off the mat as much as humanly possible. Not always, but as much as humanly possible. USVA guy asked the question is who takes Geto's place? And that is the question. Like you would almost have to make, a Chase Owens a war dog in order to bring him in. You could, but I don't know. What do you think about this, Jeremy? Geto provides that valuable service where he doesn't have to worry about his own spot on the card. He's the one who books the spots on the card for the most part. There are other people involved, but Geto's one of the bookers. And he can job himself and Jado, who's, been was his tag team partner forever, and they're still friends and all that. Jado can serve that same thing for the babyface side right now, and Hantai just keep everybody else's shoulders off the mat. So if you wanted to maybe pick up the quality of the matches by having someone other than Geto in there, who would it be? Chase? That's about it, right?
Taka.
Taka's over in Just Five Guys.
Yeah, but like
I'm not talking about screwing up changing around a whole bunch of stuff. But I mean, if Geto just decided, you know what, I don't want to work these tours anymore, it would have to be either Chase or anybody else. I'm just trying to think of who else.
Honestly,
it might be
I think that they would. I think they would just take a different direction on the matches rather than finding somebody to do that role right away. Maybe they find somebody down the line, but I don't think there's anybody actively on the roster. I look at Chase and I see a guy that got real shook that he didn't get the G1. And then I see him working out and trying to get himself into shape. I'm not necessarily sure that he's going to be motivated for them to look at him and say, hey, we do still want you. Congratulations on getting in all this shape, but you're just going to be the job guy. The guy, the bottom of the card still.
Okay. Well,
I don't know. Like, I don't know his mentality, but you know what I'm saying? Like he put a lot of work in after he didn't get that spot.
Okay. Well, we'll have to see when he returns to Japan what he looks like. And after that, we have the tour moving over to Korakuen Hall on Sunday and Monday. So we've got Friday, that show in Aichi that's not on World, and then 3 in a row there are. There's the Takagi show, and then Korakuen Hall on Sunday will be there, and it has the TV title match between Jeff Cobb and Yota Tsuji, along with the preview tags. So Tsuji and Jeff Cobb Sunday back in Korakuen Hall for the television title. And I think that'll be an interesting one, Jeremy. I don't see a title change coming. I don't think Tsuji is a TV title guy, but you don't necessarily have to be Cobb. One of the beauties of the TV title is that the short time limit allows you a chance to just have a really good match that turns into a draw. That they could do that here. I don't think beating Yota Tsuji makes a ton of sense. I guess they could do it because it's Jeff Cobb and it wouldn't really hurt him. But a draw to me makes the most sense among the two. I don't see why you do a title switch. I don't know why you beat Tsuji. So
doesn't feel like the right time, does it?
No, neither one feels like the right. I mean, I guess neither one of them would kill the other one, but it would be odd.
I think they're saving a Yota Tsuji singles title win for something bigger than the New Japan TV title. With that said, they have done a lot of work to raise the prestige of the TV title. You know, the Zack Sabre run was legitimately impressive. Sure. Jeff Cobb has had a number of very good matches. He is doing his job to defend it. I don't see him losing his first title match out the gate. No. I do think there's a possibility of other people losing their first title match out the gate after the G1. With the positioning of both of these guys, I think maintaining the status quo and going to a draw or a Jeff Cobb win is probably what I'd want to do. Yeah. But it could be a great match.
They could do it. They could have Cobb win. They could. It'd be strange to beat Tsuji in this situation, but they could do it. They could do it. But yeah, I don't see the title changing hands because I don't understand what Tsuji would bring to the TV title that Cobb doesn't. You know, it's a good spot for him, I think. So after that, we have a show on Monday. So Monday is headlined by the Never Openweight title match between HENARE and Hiromu Takahashi. And it seems like every time I think of this match, I think about why the other one should win. You know, like I'll go over it and I say, well, this should be when Hiromu wins the thing. And then I'll just sit around and think, no, they need to keep it on HENARE for now. It's honestly 50-50 to me. I don't know if New Japan is ready to bite the bullet and really have a junior heavyweight beat a heavyweight for the Never Openweight title. I think they should at some point. Doesn't necessarily have to be here, but I'm looking forward to the match because I think these two are going to work well together.
They the New Japan Twitter did something pretty funny and tried to remind everyone that Will Ospreay had the Never Openweight title as a junior heavyweight back in 2016 and developed it and defended it a number of. He was, yes, I hear you. But he was booked that way according to the
remember Shingo was a junior for a while too. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yes. There was weight functionalities that were came into play. They are trying to do everything in your power to convince you of the legitimacy of Hiromu winning this, and I certainly do not rule it out. I think that the end goal, as I've been hinting at for a while, and it may happen, it may not, is that I think it's Hiromu and Naito at Wrestle Kingdom, and they have to do some work, they think, in the viewer's eyes to make sure that Hiromu is competitive at a heavyweight level, whether he is classified as that.
That's
and so a legitimization factor of him going toe-to-toe, winning this, and maybe dropping it shortly thereafter would be one of those things. I don't see Hiromu and Naito for the Never Openweight title at Wrestle Kingdom. I think that's a little bit too far. But I do see a bragging rights thing where it's like, hey, I'm a heavyweight. I won a title. I just lost it. You're a heavyweight. You had a title. You just lost it. It's like, let's face each other. Hiromu just with this weird logic in one of these things. I believe that's what this is all about, is a legitimizing of Hiromu in the short term at a heavyweight level to build for Wrestle Kingdom. Because when you narrow down who Naito could face at Wrestle Kingdom right now, the list is very, very short.
Yeah, and Dunstan has a point here. Is HENARE versus Hiromu was the only title match coming up he cares to watch right now. It's the only thing that's really captured Dunstan's imagination. There's some other stuff I think out there. I'm looking forward to the next one we're going to talk about, the next title match we're going to talk about. But yeah, you make a really good point about trying to legitimize him if that's the way they're going, where they want to make it a LIJ type of match. It's something that I think, well, certainly Hiromu wants to do. There's no question about that. I think Naito would like to do it, and we're running out of Wrestle Kingdoms for Naito.
The window's closing, man. The window is closing.
You got to do this stuff. You got to do this stuff while you can do this stuff. It's not going to be there forever. So that you make a really compelling case that could be what they're doing here. So we will find out this week. And HENARE is a guy who can put over someone like this. This is the type of match HENARE could have, where it's just this battle of wills, and HENARE doesn't have to win all of those. It's
probably going to be pretty good.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're both really talented guys. So.
This has like Angle all over it. I think this is very crucial to the next 4 months plan, because why do you do this match otherwise? It's like, why do you give Hiromu a surprise pin on HENARE unless you have a reason for doing so?
And those shows, by the way, otherwise are just all preview tags of big matches.
Yeah, I just went through them so people can like kind of eyeball the card before we get to the main event. And I'll do that if you slide us into the 14th?
September 11th. We've got a show on September 11th. It's in Miyagi at Sendai Sun Plaza Hall. And so that one is main evented by the Junior Heavyweight Championship match, which is another one I am looking forward to. It's DOUKI defending against Taiji Ishimori on top in that one. So at least we get a title match every night. And it is something a little bit different. But we know that DOUKI is on the run of his career right now, doing very well. And Ishimori is simply one of the best junior heavyweight workers in the world. I expect nothing but great things from this match. Sentimentally, I'm hoping for DOUKI to hold on to it but that thing's been a hot potato lately. And so who knows? I certainly won't be heartbroken if Ishimori is champion again. He was snake bit the last time he held this belt, and it seemed like everything they planned for him went wrong. So if they wanted to give him another run when he actually has live challengers instead of guys that are getting sick, getting hurt, everything like kept happening to him last time, that'd be fine. If they want to keep it on DOUKI, I'm fine with it. I'm just happy I get to see this match.
junior heavyweight title kind of took a back seat the last couple of months. I feel like the last match I saw with DOUKI was the CMLL Fantastica Mania match.
That happens every year at G1, though.
Right, right. So I'm glad we're getting back to it. But even though he's held it for a considerable amount of time, I don't think that it's his time to give it up yet. You know what I mean? Like, I think he should be going in. I think they should kind of see how far they can go with DOUKI Mania in a lot of ways. He's got something, and we've all said he's had something, and he's not in a situation with Desperado that if he loses the title, it doesn't matter. He's going to remain as popular. Like, he is kind of at a precipice, a crucial point where it's just kind of like, you kind of got to keep with the guy for a while, and you have a long-term star if you sustain it. Ishimori doesn't need the title right now. He really doesn't. Like, he is a made man who's held the title God knows how many times, either, filling in for somebody, like being the guy to put over somebody else or whatever. Ishimori's fine. This is DOUKI's time. I wouldn't be shocked if Ishimori won, but all my instincts are leaning towards DOUKI.
So Dunston's calling you shot right now here on September 5th for the Tokyo Dome. He says he's got Akira challenging for the junior title. Francesco Akira challenging for the. That's not a bad. Am I very well?
That's a good pull. That is a very good pull. Another match on this card that I want to shout out that looks like could be a banger, and that is Yoshihashi, Hiroki Goto, and Tomohiro Ishii versus David Finlay, Gabe Kidd, and Jake Lee in a 6-man match. That looked like 6 guys that could, bring their working boots one night, and very excited to have that on the plate.
Should be a very good one. Yeah, I agree. And of course, we're gearing up eventually for the match between Yoshihashi and David Finlay for that global title. So, what do we got over here? We got the Young Lions, and they're doing a little bit of the bringing in people. It's not a Frontier Zone match, but who do they have going up against the 2 newest Young Lions here, Jeremy? Toru Yano and who?
Fuck, I had the name.
Oh, you don't have it in front of you.
Sakuraba?
Sakuraba, yeah, it's Sakuraba.
It just, like, it was in my head, and then it just like, you had me, and it's like, it just left my brain.
I teed it up for you and everything. No, but Sakuraba coming back. Of course, the guy, the Gracie Killer, former UFC fighter and all that. We don't get to see him very often, but this will be a chance to see him teaming up with Yano. And he is getting a little long in the tooth, maybe not as spry as he used to be, but it'll be good to see Sakuraba back. And he's got the 2 Young Lions to deal with in that one on Road to Destruction. That'll be a kick.
Do you remember the angle alert about the card for this day that they kind of quietly set up?
Well, yeah, and let's go to it. So this is in Hokkaido, by the way. This is the beginning of the Hokkaido tour. So this is that northern island that gets insane amounts of snow during the winter. So they're going back in September, which is pretty smart. And they're doing a tour into towns they don't normally go to. So we're going to be seeing some places that we don't normally see on this tour as they do a more detailed swing of Hokkaido. A lot of times they only go to Sapporo and do those shows in the building in Sapporo there, and then just head right back. But this time we're getting a little mini tour of the island there. And talk to us a little bit about you mentioned an angle alert for this one. Go ahead.
So Toru Yano is wrestling twice on the 14th. He's in the kickoff tag, and then he's in a NEVER Openweight 6-man match against the House of Torture, in which Bolton Oleg himself and Hiroshi Tanahashi will be defending these titles. I don't know about you, but that says to me like House of Torture is going to take advantage of this in some way, shape, or form, either in the kickoff match or in this to somehow, stack the deck against our precarious babyface group. I don't have anything to base this on, but I do think that we are getting towards Tanahashi and Evil at Wrestle Kingdom and a title switch at some point to give the House of Torture the advantage in some way, shape, or form, because they have not had the advantage recently in a number of scenarios. I feel like we are headed towards something of that effect. And I don't know if anyone else is reading that, but it just kind of feels like you don't double book a guy unless you have a plan for doing
Could very well be. Could be something there. So that's the beginning of that tour, kicking things off in Hokkaido. That's on the 14th, though. So we'll be back in time to preview that one, and then we'll take a look at upcoming weeks, but action ahead. So what we have here again. Yeah, we're going to be getting Izuka back in there. So we'll be seeing him coming up on this tour. But I just want to reiterate again, before we come back next Thursday, there is a house show tomorrow, not on World. Then 3 in a row that are. So we'll get Saturday, Sunday, Monday, all on NJPW World. We get an off day on Tuesday, and then back on Wednesday. And both Korakuen Hall shows and the Wednesday show have title matches on top. So busy week, as it turns out. Plenty to watch here.
But the flip side of that, Steven, is that we pretty much don't have any programming for New Japan World from the 14th until the 29th.
It's another little lull, isn't it? Yeah, until we get to Destruction. So yeah, we'll be back to review everything, preview everything, and there's always going to be news. There's always news coming out. So we'll be covering anything.
We'll talk whatever. You might have an extra history lesson that day.
Might. And then, we also are keeping an eye and an ear out. Nothing yet on what might be next for Gabe Kidd as the NJPW Strong Champion, or Mercedes Moné as the NJPW Strong Women's Champion, the TMDK as the tag belts. So there will be more to come, and more announcements to be made.
TMDK is...
Well, yeah, they have Ishii and Tanahashi because of the number one contenders match.
I would bet Gabe Kidd has a Royal Quest match. I would bet Mercedes Moné does not have a Royal Quest match.
Yeah. I think you're spot on with that. But any announcements that come in, and we're expecting some, because they're going to want to put some things out there when they get them booked to try to sell some tickets, and we will bring all that news to you as it happens. Anything else you want to cover before we get into some histories?
No, we might have a little bit of a shorter show today if we don't have if possible. But, if you want to go back and check out our Capital Collision review that we did on Friday, you can find it in our audio feed and the video archive for the Fight Game Media Network. Among other things that we have on the Fight Game Media Network, we have these shows, the Power Bomb shows on Sundays, airing at what time? 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, 1 p.m. Eastern time on Sundays.
The Dynamite show, 20 minutes after the end of Dynamite. You have the Speaking of Strong Style that you're with us now. And then we have the 5-Star Joshi show, the Double G show, Observe This, pay-per-view PLE recaps, and USVA guy says we might have to do a recap show in December. There might be a new show announcement.
Oh, yeah. All right. Let's do something.
So I am down for that. But if you see us when we tweet out or do anything, like, subscribe, amplify, retweet, all the things. We had a lot of good feedback from our recap show. We're very happy with that. We've been grinding away and trying to, just have a presence out there in the New Japan world. And all the great feedback has been nothing but helpful and emboldened us to keep our passion alive for this.
It's our 125th episode, by the way.
125?
125. And Colin mentions this. Yeah. Colin mentions this. He said, did you hear about Mayu Iwatani no longer wanting to wrestle in the 5-star, which is Bushi Road related? And of course, Historic Crossover is coming, which we're waiting for announcements on. Yeah, I did see that. And again, it's one of those things it's an interesting way of putting something because there are still a lot of rumors that Mayu is going to leave and go back to Marigold, not go back, but to leave Stardom and go back with Rossi Ogawa and follow to Marigold. Now, Bushi Road, if they have a sane bone in their body, will try to lure her back to another contract with Stardom because she is the icon. She's legitimately one of the biggest stars in the entire company. She's certainly the biggest stars in stars, her faction. But she said that she was retiring from the 5-Star Grand Prix and will not be competing in that tournament going forward, even if she is in Stardom. To me, it just kind of looks a little bit more like she's not staying in Stardom at all. She's retiring from the 5-Star Grand Prix because she might not be in Stardom next year. And of course, Marigold just started their tournament because everyone's got to have one in Japan. For the love of God, if you don't have a month-long 20-show round-robin tournament to overload everybody's schedules, then
what are we even doing, right?
Then what are we even doing? Currently my computer has a little bit of wisps of smoke and steam coming out of it from all the shows I've been watching lately, because even with New Japan out of action, I have been cramming as much Stardom and N1 and all these things going on. So we need more of those. By all means, let's have another tournament.
More wrestling all the time.
Hey, you know what though?
Possibly be the problem and or the solution to our lives.
You know what though? There's so much good talent out there. If you're talking about this, Jeremy, seriously, we can digress for just a moment. How fortunate are we to be in this time when we have this much really good wrestling to watch, and it's available to be seen? You know, like when I was a little kid, and I know I'm just going back to, you know, back when the world was black and white, and we walked uphill to school both ways in the snow. But I used to have to go to the grocery store with my mom and look through the wrestling magazines to see anything outside of what was on my local promotions. That was how I had to follow wrestling. And sometimes you could go, you know, and catch some things on cable, and, you know, so maybe somebody had a channel that you don't have that had wrestling on it. But nowadays, geez, I can just go onto Wrestle Universe and I can see all these different promotions. I've got the Stardom stuff. I've got New Japan World. There's, you know, WWE is on fire right now. There's always great matches in AEW. My God, some of the stuff from Wembley was great. And CMLL, for the love of God, CMLL has been great lately too. So I just feel like we're in a time when we're probably seeing more really talented people and more really good wrestling than most times in history, I think. Especially in Japan, it's just real strong stuff. And we have competition. It's I think it's been healthy for it. And I know not every company is selling out every building, but you know, that ebbs and flows. But as a fan, I'm having a great time trying to keep up with all this.
One of the things that I really had to work on mentally in the last 10 or 15 years was the getting over the FOMO of missing stuff like the Survivor Series when you were growing up because you didn't have pay-per-view, or your parents were like, we were on the road or something, and the hotel room didn't have the channel that you wanted to watch, and there was no way to see it for like 6 months, right? We don't exist in that anymore. But there's still a psychological, like, I can't miss it. I have to see it. If I don't, like, my life is incomplete, or all these things. And you have to get over that at some point, that you're not going to see everything, and you're going to miss matches, and you're going to miss like shows and football games, and like there are other things that are more important. But I applaud 2024 for making it as easy as possible for most of these promotions for me to watch their product. Do I wish that AEW had more of a digital footprint for a streaming service? Yes. Do I wish that I didn't have to wait until Saturday morning to watch WWE SmackDown instead of Friday night because Hulu and where I live and reception? Absolutely. It's not perfect, but it's so much better than it was, and I have nothing to complain about.
And if you're a completist, this era as a completist will absolutely give you an eye tick. You'll just be sitting in the corner in the fetal position because it's impossible to watch everything. Which is why you need the Fight Game Media, because we cover everything out here.
I do think things like the Wrestle app for Noah.
Wrestle Universe.
Wrestle Universe. I want to say Wrestle Kingdom, but I knew that wasn't it. They need a native app for the Apple TV and all.
Oh yeah, they do.
Streaming any promotion that is streaming from like a phone app rather than committing to an actual television app is not doing themselves any favors, and you are actively looking like a minor league promotion when you do so.
Yeah, I do wish that I could bring that up on my Apple TV Plus, but
Rev Pro too. Like Rev Pro could be so much bigger if you could just stream it to the Apple Digital.
Well, I agree. And that's something, and on that subject too, NJPW World, we're still hoping to see those improvements that President Tanahashi promised us here. And let's get those archives back up for us history nerds, for the love of goodness.
There's a Twitter user, Smart Infested Waters, that currently has
I saw that.
A tweet out about 4 different issues. Which one is the one that currently upsets you the most? There were a number of things: connection issues, the library being brought back. I personally wish that if a show is still on, that I could start it from the beginning without having chapter breaks, and I can watch a full show through without like an issue that they haven't like datafied the latest match into its own thing, and then I'm stopped. Like that has frustrated me a number of times, and I wish that I could watch a full show while it is still on air and for like 2 hours after.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm still looking for those archives, guys. Anytime you want to put them all up, I'm ready. All right.
We're talking Tanahashi.
Yeah, we're talking history here. We're going to go back to Hiroshi Tanahashi again. Now, where we left off with Hiroshi, the first week we talked about his early struggles. You know, he had a couple of years there where he was just kind of treading water early in his career, paying his dues. And then he had the thing where he was stabbed by his girlfriend, who was a public figure. She was a news reporter or a TV reporter. I don't know if it was really news or if she was doing features. But point being, we almost lost him. He had a collapsed lung, and he was out of action for a while. When he came back, everybody kind of realized that, oh, that really talented kid we almost didn't have him back. And so it helped him in that way. So people were happy to see him back and up and at it in the ring. And then his talent began to shine through and began to work his way up the cards. When we left off, he had just headlined his very first Tokyo Dome January 4th show. And he had lost the under 30 title he had to his partner, tag team partner, Shinsuke Nakamura. So at this point, Nakamura is the under 30 champion, and he and Tanahashi still the IWGP tag team champions. And so Tanahashi has made the Tokyo Dome main event, and that was in front of a pretty big crowd. I believe it was like around, in the 40 to 50,000 range, just a very big crowd there at the Dome, and had maybe been half a step behind Nakamura, who had already been a main eventer for a while. But now he's joining Nakamura in some of those main events, and he's his tag team partner. So as 2005 continued, Tanahashi's ascent up the cards also continued. And it was a pretty smooth ride. And to give you an idea how well it went, in April, Tanahashi won the New Japan Cup. He won his very first New Japan Cup. He defeated Nakanishi in the finals, and he beat Tenzan, Koji Kanemoto, and Nagata along the way. So all big stars he would take down on the way to winning his first New Japan Cup. That would lead to another run with the under 30 title, however. So at this point, Nakamura wasn't defending it. And the company requested he relinquish the title because Nakamura had his eyes on other things, notably the World Championship. So at that point, he relinquished the title, and they had a tournament to crown a new champion, and Tanahashi won that tournament on June 18th, and that was during the Super Junior Tour, and he took the title back. So once again, he's a double champ. He's the under 30 champion. He's tag team champion with Shinsuke. He beat Yano in the finals, by the way, of that under 30 tournament, and he would go on to hold that title for almost a full year again. So now he's won the New Japan Cup tournament. He won the under 30 tournament to create a new champion, and we're just now heading into the G1. Now, he did not advance in the G1 that year. He finished about middle of the pack. Masachono, Mr. August himself, and won the tournament this year. And then after that, as he is the double champion, he spent a month or so in CMLL. He and Nakamura both went over there for a little bit over a month. So most of September, coming out of that G1 hangover anyway, they were over in Mexico. It's the closest thing Tanahashi ever really had to an excursion. He never was away for a year. He stayed with the company and did not go over to the United States much. He did like little hits here and there. But this was the longest he'd been away from New Japan without an injury, basically. And so he was out there working Friday nights in Mexico City and other towns. He also in January 2006, by the way, made a couple of shots for TNA. He lost to AJ Styles in TNA, beat Roderick Strong and all that. He and Nakamura ended up dropping the tag team belts to Tenzan and Chono in October, and that was the end of that tag team. We mentioned before that there was always respect between Nakamura and Tanahashi, but not necessarily friendship. They were just different people. It was always respectful. And I mentioned, if you read Nakamura's book, you can see the little tension up there. I think these guys kind of rubbed each other the wrong way a little bit over time. But they would continue to be generational rivals, of course. But that tag team was done after that. Later that year, Let's see. Yeah. And that was the end of that team. So we go into 2006. In 2006, he earned a title shot against IWGP champion, who was, get ready for it, Brock Lesnar. So you see him as part of the IWGP package. And so he earned a title shot against Brock Lesnar. Now, Jeremy, you will be shocked to find out.
I don't think I'll be shocked.
You might not be shocked to find out that match didn't happen. And I'm sure you'll be astonished to find out that the reason that match didn't happen is because Brock simply stopped going to Japan. He never minded the whole thing. Not only did he stop going, he kept the belt. Just never even sent the belt back. Just like, heck with it. I'm not going anymore. He Brocked himself right out of the gig. So they decided to have, guess what? A tournament. Go figure. To determine a new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. They got themselves a brand new spanking belt. The other one did ended up making its way back into circulation, by the way. There was another was a Noki Genome Project promotion that started up, and they made Brock the champion, and he used that belt. And somebody threw out enough money for Brock to come back, and never mind. It didn't end up working out, but that belt did make its way back to Japan and out of Brock's closet. So anyway, he went into this tournament to crown a new IWGP champion. If you remember, Tanahashi has had success in tournaments before. And this one was a semifinals and finals in one night. And the other three people involved were Giant Bernard. So that was Matt Bloom, the trainer in NXT. Akebono, one of the all-time great Yokozuna from Grand Sumo, who had transitioned out of Grand Sumo into pro wrestling. A massive human being, Chad Rowan. We talked about him a little bit not too long ago after he passed away. And Yuji Nagata. So Tanahashi beat Nagata in the semifinals. Bernard managed to beat Akebono. And then in Sapporo, he defeated Giant Bernard, and he became the new IWGP champion. It's the first time Hiroshi Tanahashi made it all the way to the top, and he was officially the champ finally. So didn't get to beat Brock to do it, but there it is. So now he's going into G1 as the champion. So, he's not going to win it. And he didn't. Tenzan won it that year. But later in the year, he did go to the G1 Tag League Finals with Koji Kanemoto as his partner, and he lost to Nakamura and Chono in the finals there. And in January, he was of 2007. We move over to 2007. At that January 4th show, he was in the semifinal of the very first show labeled Wrestle Kingdom. So this is the very first Wrestle Kingdom show. And the original concept to Wrestle Kingdom, Jeremy, is similar to what they're doing with Wrestle Dynasty. The entire point of Wrestle Kingdom is that there were people from other promotions coming in to wrestle on New Japan cards or New Japan wrestlers against other companies and things. So in that one, he defeated Taiyo Kia to retain his IWGP title. And like I said, that was second from the top because the main event was a Super Dream Tag match with Masa Chono and Keiji Muto, two of the original Three Musketeers there, teaming together, and they have been long-time rivals before this. They teamed together to defeat Tenkozy, Tenzan and Kojima. That was the main event. Also on that card, by the way, Minoru Suzuki defeated Yuji Nagata by ref stoppage to retain the All Japan Triple Crown. So Minoru Suzuki actually defended All Japan's Triple Crown on that same show. So those are the top three matches, basically. The dream match at the very top with those big name stars that have been stars since the mid-90s. And then you had Tanahashi's defense and Minoru Suzuki's defense. Now, remember how I mentioned also that this was during that time where they had wounded the company a little bit by mixing in MMA?
Right.
Okay, so this one didn't have that. We had all these other people coming in, but I mentioned how that had already started sliding downhill. The previous year, between 40 and 50,000. The first Wrestle Kingdom show, 28,000. So crowd down almost 15,000 people from the year before. So you're starting to see those wounds really take hold within New Japan, and the crowd's starting to shrink after years and years of packing the Tokyo Dome for everything. They were going to struggle to fill that building going forward. So he would defend that title 4 times. He ended up losing in April to Nagata, Yuji Nagata, who was kind of in the position that the old guard is in now. in that Nagata had been the star for years and years. Now these younger guys like Nakamura and Tanahashi were coming up, and he was holding on as best he could. And he did beat, he won the New Japan Cup, Nagata did, and won the right to challenge Tanahashi, and he beat Tanahashi. So Tanahashi's former champion. Now he's going into the G1. Now you get a chance to have another first. He got back on the road to the title, and he won his first G1 climax in the year 2007. He finished behind Nakamura in the B block, but the top two guys from each block ended up going to the semifinals. From there, he beat Togi Makabe, and then he defeated the IWGP champion, Yuji Nagata, in the finals. And that would give him a rematch with Nagata. And that would be on October 7th. So here's another precedent, actually. It wasn't for the Wrestle Kingdom title shot the following year. He won and challenged in October. So Tanahashi did, in fact, win the title back, and he carried the belt all the way back to the Dome again. So this time they come back around to the Tokyo Dome. They get back to another match between Tanahashi and Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, if you remember, 2 years before this, Nakamura had beaten Tanahashi to capture that under 30 title. Now they're Nakamura's challenging him for the IWGP belt. This Wrestle Kingdom 2 had a lot of TNA talent on it, by the way. Christopher Daniels, Abyss, Christian Cage, AJ Styles. This was before AJ came over and joined Bullet Club. P.D. Williams was on the card. This is an interesting, by the way, the opening match there. Christian Cage, AJ, and Pete Williams beat Milano Collection AT when he was still wrestling.
Sure.
Minoru, not Minoru Suzuki, a wrestler named Minoru, and Prince Devitt in the opener. So you got a little Finn Balor in there to go with AJ and Christian and Pete Williams. Team 3D, the Dudley Boys, who weren't the Dudley Boys at that point because, copyright. They beat Makabe and Toru Yano in a hardcore match on that show. Giant Bernard was there, Travis Tomko, if you remember him. They beat the Steiner brothers. And in a major match, second from the top, Kurt Angle defeated Yuji Nagata. So that's what we were talking about back then at the second Wrestle Kingdom.
Definitely a different era.
Definitely a different era. And it only drew 27,000. So down 1,000 from the year before. New Japan's just kind of having some issues. So in that match, January 4th, 2007, Tanahashi loses the title to Shinsuke Nakamura. If you look at how things were going, it's not hard to figure. So since he won the title, attendance at the huge January shows has been falling off 15, 16,000 off of what it was before. They weren't running the Dome in the mid-year anymore because back when we started this history of Tanahashi, they were doing almost quarterly Dome shows in front of 40,000 people. Now they're only running it about once a year or so, and it's drawn 28, 27,000. So it's, even though he was popular with the fans, and even though the people were reacting to him, there were fewer of them.
Something wasn't firing on all cylinders.
They went with Nakamura, and Tanahashi would not be in the world title picture for the next year. And when we pick it up again, we're moving into 2008, toward the end of the odds, and when Tanahashi makes another surge. But I have to say, his initial run with the IWGP title, his first G1, his first New Japan Cup, it's not all his fault. I'm not trying to put that on Tanahashi at all. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that he was not the savior yet that he would eventually become. Oh, absolutely. I mean, there were all kinds of things wrong with New Japan at this time. All kinds of things wrong with New Japan at the time. This was not Tanahashi's fault. But he was the champion. And so at that point, they decided to try to move in the Nakamura direction rather than the Tanahashi direction at the beginning of this time. And it would be a little while before Tanahashi would really rise to be the ace again. And we'll pick that up next time as he really becomes the once-in-a-century talent and the ace. The more I look into this, the more what a difficult road this was for him. Yeah. This was not a guy who was an instant success. No, not an instant success. Was not a guy who was handed anything, and more than once was kind of knocked down the cards a little bit and had to claw his way back up through work rate, charisma, everything else. We know he did it, but it is fascinating to see that this was not anything resembling a smooth road for Hiroshi Tanahashi or New Japan. Like I said, this was not, it wasn't that he was doing a poor job as champion. The company was really faltering at this point, and the financials were a mess for a whole bunch of reasons that weren't even to do with pro wrestling. And it was real hard times. And they would need an ace. One's coming, but they don't know it's him yet.
I like if you look nowadays, the friendly like Nakamura and Tanahashi meetups in 2023 and 2024. Like they're getting lunch together, hanging out.
There's not much of that though, is it? Usually it's Nakamura and Suzuki having coffee or something like that.
There's a few of them now.
There's a couple, but not like there are the others.
But it's enough that it's like, wow. Like you wouldn't even, you feel like you wouldn't ever have these two getting lunch with each other.
Yeah, time mellows a lot of things.
Yeah,
time mellows a lot of things.
Yeah, you're either time mellows it or one of them is buried.
Yeah. I mean, but Nakamura's put together a good career over here, and he's made a lot of money. He's made a good life for.
He's happy, and Okada following the same money plan, so good for him. I don't have much to say about this right now.
No, I understand. I always say that I'm never going to blame guys who do this to their bodies and brains. I'm never going to criticize them for taking a big payoff for doing so. It's a hard,
it's a zero-sum game trying to explain to people who have an expectation that you're going to get New Japan Okada all the time, and you're not getting New Japan Okada.
New Japan didn't get New Japan Okada all the time. Let's remember that. I mean, Okada absolutely would do a few things and tag out in those 6-man tags underneath for most of the tour until he got to the big match. So the idea that he's just going to go on Dynamite and Collision every week and tear the house down is an unrealistic expectation in the first place.
Yes. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, he didn't leave a shirt on, but we had shirt on Okada. You know what I mean? Like the whole Kenny Omega.
I enjoy his singles matches, but I do feel like we are on a quota of one singles match a month for Okada, and it just kind of like it's cool, but you need to build these matches better than what we're getting. Like it should be a marquee match when Okada wrestles, and you're not even really treating it like a marquee match when it happens. And I just want more.
I'm hoping I get to see him at Wrestle Dynasty in something special. I
hope so for you too. All right. Anything else for us?
No, I think we can wrap this up a few minutes early this week. And I just want to say thanks to everybody who tuned in live and watched with us and interacted with us on the chat. We really enjoy that. It's one of my favorite things of the show is interacting with you guys. And for those of you who listen later on a podcast, we're very grateful that you took the time to spend with us and listen to hear what we have to say about New Japan. We'll be back next week to review the 4 shows that are appearing on NJPW World. We'll cover any other news. And in the meantime, for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. Thank you again for your time. This has been Speaking of Strong Style, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
See y'all.